Get this thing off the street right now. I want you arrested. You heard me. Get out of here.
We're just waiting for the tow truck, sir.
You know that specific kind of exhaustion that hits you right after you close a deal? That's been eating you alive for 6 months. It's a good kind of tired. The kind that settles deep in your bones, but it makes you just want one thing: silence. That was me, Marcus Sterling, last Tuesday. I had just landed back in Atlanta from a week of absolute hell in San Francisco, negotiating a merger that was going to change the face of my company, Sterling FinTech. I was running on 4 hours of sleep and 3 espressos, driving my sanctuary, a Rolls-Royce Spectre, down the winding, oak-lined streets of Oakwood Enclave. Now, Oakwood is one of those neighborhoods where the lawns look like they've been manicured with nail scissors and the air smells like old money and jasmine. I've lived there for 3 years. I bought the house a sprawling mid-century modern tucked behind a privacy gate because I wanted peace. I wanted a place where my daughter, Maya, could ride her bike without me having a heart attack. But let's be real. When you're a black man driving a $500,000 car into a neighborhood where the median age is 60 and the median complexion is, well, let's just say I stick out. You never truly let your guard down. You always check the rearview mirror. You always make sure you use your turn signal, even in your own driveway. It's a survival tax. I pulled up to my gate, the electric hum of the rolls barely audible over the cicadas. I clicked the remote, watched the iron gates swing open, and felt my shoulders finally drop an inch. I was home. I parked in the driveway because the garage was full of Maya's science fair project and my wife's pottery wheel. I stepped out, loosened my tie, the silk one I'd worn to shake hands with tech billionaires, and took a deep breath of that humid Georgia air. I didn't know it yet, but across the street, behind the plantation shutters of a brick colonial that hadn't been updated since 1990, Gordon Miller was watching me. Gordon is the self-appointed sheriff of Oakwood. He's a retired middle manager from Vanguard Aerospace, a guy who spent 40 years feeling small in a big corporate machine. And now, in his retirement, he treated our street like his own personal kingdom. He knew whose grass was a 1/4 inch too high, whose trash cans were out too early, and apparently, who didn't look like they owned the car they were driving. To Gordon, seeing me, a guy in a hoodie, because I changed immediately for the drive home, stepping out of a Rolls-Royce didn't compute. In his mind, there were only 2 options. I was the help stealing the car, or I was a criminal casing the joint. It never occurred to him that I was the guy who paid the property taxes on the biggest lot in the subdivision. He didn't just watch. He acted. He grabbed his phone, his fingers probably trembling with that righteous adrenaline some people get when they think they're about to be a hero. He dialed 911. "There's a suspicious individual at 400 for Willow Creek," he told the dispatcher. "Black male. He's stealing a vehicle, a Rolls-Royce. You need to send units now." But Gordon didn't stop there. He needed an audience. He texted his little coalition of concerned citizens. There was Brenda, the realtor 2 doors down, who was always terrified property values were plummeting, and Ted, a nervous guy who followed Gordon around like a lost puppy. Within 2 minutes, they were out on their lawns. I was grabbing my briefcase from the trunk when I heard it. "Hey, you." I turned around. Gordon was standing at the edge of my driveway, arms crossed, chest puffed out like a rooster. Brenda was behind him, clutching her phone like a weapon, recording. "Can I help you, Gordon?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. I knew his name because he'd sent me 3 nasty letters about my fence height. "Don't play games with me, boy," he spat out. "Whose car is that? Where are the owners?" I sighed, leaning against the fender of my car. "I am the owner, Gordon. I live here. You've seen me for 3 years. I've seen a lot of things." Brenda chimed in, stepping closer with her camera lens focused on my face. "But I've never seen you in a car like that. You usually drive that SUV." "That's my wife's car," I said, my patience fraying. "This is my weekend car. Look, I'm tired. I'm going inside." "You're not going anywhere," Gordon shouted, stepping onto my property. "I called the police. They're on their way. You stay right there until they sort this out." I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the fear in his eyes, masked as aggression. He was terrified that I existed in his world, that my success somehow diminished his. "Get off my property, Gordon," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "Now, or what?" He sneered. "You gonna rob me too?" That's when the sirens started. Not one, but 3 cruisers came tearing around the corner, lights flashing, cutting through the twilight. They screeched to a halt in front of my house. Doors flew open, 4 officers poured out, hands hovering near their holsters. "Hands! Let me see your hands!" the lead officer screamed. My heart hammered against my ribs, that primal fear. That doesn't care how much money you have in the bank. I raised my hands slowly, palms open. "I live here," I said clearly. "My ID is in my back pocket. Don't move." Gordon was beaming. He looked at Brenda, then at the cops. That's him. He was trying to take the car into the garage. I caught him just in time. The lead officer, a young guy, was advancing on me, adrenaline high. But the second officer, an older sergeant with gray at his temples, froze. He squinted at me through the glare of the squad lights. He took a step closer, then lowered his hand from his weapon. "Mr. Sterling?" the sergeant asked, his voice confused. I recognized him. Sergeant Kowalski. I'd met him 6 months ago at the Police Foundation Gala. I had donated a significant check to fund their mental health unit. After a friend of mine on the force committed suicide. "Sergeant Kowalski," I said, keeping my hands up. "Good to see you again. Though I wish the circumstances were better." Kowalski's face went pale. "Stand down," he barked at the rookie. "Holster your weapon, now." The rookie looked confused but obeyed. Kowalski walked up to me, bypassing Gordon entirely. "Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry. We got a call about a grand theft auto in progress. A suspect matching. Well, they said a suspect was stealing a Rolls-Royce." I lowered my hands and adjusted my cuffs. "It's my car, Sergeant. I just got home." Gordon's smile faltered. "Sergeant, what are you doing? That man is a criminal. Look at him. Look at the car." "There's no way, Mr. Miller." Kowalski turned, and his voice was like ice. "I suggest you be quiet. You just called in a false report on one of this department's biggest supporters." Gordon blinked, his brain misfiring. "Supporter? What are you talking about?" I walked past the officers, right up to the edge of the driveway where Gordon stood. The power dynamic had shifted so fast the air pressure seemed to drop. Brenda had stopped recording, her phone lowered to her chest. Ted was slowly backing away toward his own yard. "Gordon," I said, and I made sure my voice carried. "You worked for Vanguard Aerospace for 30 years, right? Retired in middle management?" Gordon looked wary. "Yeah, so what? Vanguard has a very robust pension fund," I continued, looking him dead in the eye. "It's managed by a firm called Sterling FinTech. My firm. I sit on the board of Vanguard, Gordon. I was the one who approved the cost of living adjustment for retirees last quarter." The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a ghost. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again like a fish on a dock. You're on the board?" he whispered. "And your son, David?" I added, "I knew this because I'm thorough. When you move into a neighborhood like this, you research the threats. David works in logistics at Vanguard, doesn't he? Up for a promotion to regional director?" Gordon started to shake. It wasn't the rage anymore. It was pure, unadulterated terror. He realized in that split second that he hadn't just harassed a neighbor. He had declared war on the man who held the keys to his family's livelihood. I didn't know," Gordon stammered. "I was just neighborhood watch. We have to be vigilant." "Vigilant against what?" I asked, stepping closer. "Against a taxpayer parking in his own driveway? Or against a black man doing better than you?" "I thought it was stolen." Brenda squeaked, trying to save herself. "It seemed suspicious. My Ring camera recorded everything," I said, pointing to the small blue light by my front door. "The audio, the video, the slurs you used before the cops arrived. You people don't belong here." "Was that the phrase, Gordon?" Kowalski stepped in. "Mr. Sterling, do you want to press charges? Making a false report, harassment. We can take him in right now." I looked at Gordon. He looked small, defeated. He was waiting for me to destroy him right there. But I knew something he didn't. I knew that the court of public opinion moves faster than any legal system. And I knew that true punishment isn't a night in a cell. It's losing the respect of everyone you've ever tried to impress. No, Sergeant, I said, brushing invisible dust off my shoulder. Let him go home. I think Mr. Miller has a lot to think about. Besides, I have a Zoom call in 20 minutes with the CEO of Vanguard. I'd hate to be late. I turned my back on them. I walked into my house, the heavy oak door clicking shut behind me. I didn't look back, but I knew Gordon was left standing there in the ruin of his own making. But here's the thing about anger, it lingers. I sat in my kitchen, pouring a glass of water, my hands shaking just a little, not from fear, but from the sheer exhaustion of having to prove I exist. I thought about letting it go. I really did. I thought, Marcus, be the bigger man. Then I got a notification on my phone. It was from a neighborhood app, a video. Brenda hadn't stopped recording when she claimed she did. She had live-streamed the first part, the part where Gordon called me a thug and a thief. The comments were rolling in, mostly from neighbors supporting them. Good job, Gordon. Keep our streets safe. They were celebrating it. They were proud of it. That was the breaking point. It wasn't just Gordon. It was the culture he protected. I realized that if I let this slide, the next time it wouldn't be me. It would be my nephew, or my daughter. And maybe the next cop wouldn't be Sergeant Kowalski. Maybe the next cop would be a rookie with an itchy trigger finger who believed Gordon's lie. So I opened my laptop. I downloaded the ring footage crystal clear, 4K resolution. I synced it with the audio. I didn't add any commentary. I didn't need to. I just captioned it. This is what it looks like to come home to Oakwood Enclave. I hit post. I went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, the world had changed. The internet is a terrifying, beautiful machine. It doesn't sleep, it doesn't forgive, and it definitely doesn't tolerate racists getting caught in 4K. By the time I poured my coffee at 7 a.m., the video had 4 million views. It was trending on Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit. The hashtags were brutal. Hashtag Oakwood Karen, hashtag Rolls-Royce racist, hashtag while black. I watched the view count tick up like a stopwatch. 5 million, 6 million. But it wasn't just the views. It was the digging. You see, when you piss off the internet, you invite a legion of amateur detectives into your life. By 9 a.m., Gordon Miller had been identified. His address, his phone number, his entire work history at Vanguard Aerospace, it was all out there. People were review bombing Brenda's real estate page. Would not recommend. Tried to sell me a house but called the cops on me instead. Her rating dropped from 4.8 to 1.2 in 3 hours. She deleted her Facebook, but the screenshots live forever. But the real blow came around noon. I was in my home office, fielding calls from my PR team who wanted to know if I wanted to make a statement. I said no. Let the video speak, when my phone buzzed with an email from the current CEO of Vanguard. A guy named Restless Richard. Subject, urgent, regarding the incident. Body, Marcus, we've seen the video. We are horrified. This does not represent our values. We are taking immediate steps. I didn't have to ask what those steps were. I found out an hour later when Gordon's son, David, the one up for a promotion, called me. His voice was shaking so hard I could barely understand him. Mr. Sterling, he choked out. This is David Miller, Gordon's son. I know who you are, David. I said quietly, sir, I wanted to apologize. I had no idea he was like that. I mean, I knew he was old-fashioned, but this, he took a ragged breath. HR just called me in. They're putting me on administrative leave pending an investigation into reputational risk, sir. I have a baby on the way. I can't lose this job. I felt a twinge of sympathy. The sins of the father shouldn't visit the son. But then I remembered the way Gordon looked at me, the pure, unadulterated hate. That hate is learned. That hate is taught at the dinner table. David, I said, I won't intervene with HR. That's an internal matter. But if you want to save your career, you need to decide right now who you are. Because right now, the world thinks you're just a younger version of him. I'm not. He cried. I haven't spoken to him in years for this exact reason. He's toxic, Mr. Sterling. Then make that clear, I said. Publicly, David hung up. 2 hours later, he posted a statement on LinkedIn denouncing his father's actions and donating $5,000 to the NAACP. It was a survival move, sure, but it isolated Gordon even further. But the nail in the coffin wasn't the job or the sun. It was the ghost from the past. Round 4 p.m., a thread started trending on Twitter. A local journalist had done a deep dive into 911 calls from our street over the last 5 years. She found a pattern. Gordon hadn't just called on me. He had made 17 calls in 5 years. Suspicious person walking. Suspicious person sitting on a bench. Suspicious person delivering a package. Every single subject was black dot. And then they found Jamal 3 years ago. A 17-year-old kid named Jamal was waiting for an Uber outside the neighborhood gates. After tutoring a kid in math, Gordon had called the cops, claiming Jamal was casing houses and looked armed. The police arrived hot. Jamal panicked and reached for his phone. He was tackled, tased, and in the struggle, his arm was broken so badly he lost his baseball scholarship. No one knew it was Gordon who made that call. Until now. The internet found Jamal. He did an interview from his dorm room at a community college. I lost my scholarship because of that man, Jamal said, tears streaming down his face. I thought I was going to die that night. I just wanted to go home. That changed everything. It wasn't funny anymore. It wasn't just a Karen video. It was evidence of a predator. The police chief issued a statement saying they were reviewing Gordon's abuse of emergency services. The Vanguard Pension Board where I sit sent a formal letter notifying Gordon that his conduct violated the morality clause of the retiree benefit package, triggering a review of his discretionary bonuses. He wasn't just losing face. He was losing money. Thursday night, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Usually, these things are boring discussions about mulch colors. Tonight, the community center was packed. Standing room only. I walked in, and the room went silent. It was the Red Sea parting again. Gordon was there. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wearing sweatpants, eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who had been screaming into a void for 48 hours. Brenda wasn't there. She had fled to her sister's house in Florida. Ted was sitting in the back, staring at the floor. The HOA president, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah, banged the gavel. We are here to discuss a motion to invoke Article 12, conduct detrimental to the community. Gordon stood up. He tried to muster that old arrogance, but his voice cracked. I've lived here 35 years. He shouted, but it sounded like a plea. I built this community. I was protecting you. You can't do this to me over one mistake. It wasn't one mistake, Gordon, I said from the back of the room. I didn't shout. I didn't have to. It was 17. It was Jamal. It was me. It was every person you made feel unsafe in a place that's supposed to be home. I looked around the room. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking you to decide what kind of neighborhood this is. Do we look out for each other? Or do we only look out for the people who look like Gordon? Sarah called for a vote. It was unanimous. 87-0. The HOA officially censured Gordon, stripped him of his neighborhood watch status, and filed a restraining order on behalf of the community to prevent him from harassing residents. Gordon looked round the room. He saw his neighbors' people he'd BBQ'd with, people whose dogs he'd petted turning their backs on him. He realized then that he was completely, utterly alone. He walked out of that meeting a ghost. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign went up in Gordon's yard, priced below market value. He needed cash fast. The legal fees from Jamal's lawsuit, which I was funding, by the way, were piling up. I saw him one last time. It was moving day. I was in my driveway, washing the Rolls-Royce. Gordon was loading a box into a U-Haul. He looked older, smaller. He looked over at me, and for a second, I thought he might come over, maybe apologize, maybe scream, but he just looked down. He got in the truck and drove away. He didn't look back at the house he'd lived in for 35 years. A month later, a new family moved in. A young couple. The husband is an architect. The wife is a pediatrician. They're Asian American. They have a golden retriever that barks too much, but I don't mind that. Yesterday, I pulled into my driveway. The gates opened. I saw the new neighbor, Ken, mowing his lawn. He stopped, waved, and yelled, "Hey Marcus, love the car." I waved back. "Thanks, Ken." I parked. I stepped out. I took a deep breath. The air still smelled like jasmine, but the heaviness was gone. The eyes watching from behind the blinds were gone. It cost a man his reputation, his son, and his home to learn a simple lesson. You don't own the world, and you certainly don't judge a book by its cover, especially when that book sits on your pension board. But it makes me wonder, and I want to ask you guys this: did Gordon deserve to lose everything? Was it justice for Jamal and for all the harassment, or did the internet take it too far? At what point does accountability become cruelty? Or is cruelty sometimes the only language a bully understands? Let me know what you think in the comments. And do me a favor, check your own biases at the door. You never know who you're talking to. Stay safe out there.